Tiny Prisoners is a really interesting book. This was a foster carer memoir from Maggie Hartley, released originally in 2016. I'd read it before, I couldn't really remember it, so I was really happy to revisit it. And before I get in with this, I just want to praise the cover, because quite often with foster care memoirs, the cover will have a child who is really young, but in the story, the child is like a preteen or a teenager. The children on the front cover of this are pretty much exactly what I imagined the children in the story to look like, so massive credit for that. This focuses on two young children who Kathy is looking after. Elliot and Evie, who I think are 3 and 2 or 4 and 3. Feel free to correct me, but they're very young children. And they come into care because something horrific happens at home, and it turns out that their needs have not been met, particularly with Elliot. It seems that their mother has been quite affectionate with Evie, but definitely not with Elliot. And when they come to Maggie, it becomes very clear that they haven't had a childhood. These children don't even know how to play, they can't use their imaginations. It's really quite upsetting and kind of horrific to imagine what it would be like if they never came into the care system. And a lot of people obviously look down on the care system and think that it's awful, and yeah, there's room for improvement. But at the same time, cases like this really show that it really helps to improve the children's life, because if they grew up with that level of neglect and didn't even understand simple concepts like playing with toys, who knows what it could have been like for them. But thankfully, Maggie's there to help them, and it's really moving to see just how much these children develop in her care over what is realistically a short space of time. However, while things are improving with their abilities, there's still an uncertainty about where they're going to go in their future, because some people, not Maggie, but some people think that it's pointless even considering them for adoption. It's unclear whether their parents will ever be able to meet their needs, and it's kind of sad to think that, yeah, while Maggie's working with these children, it's still very uncertain where they're going to end up. And of course, I'm not going to provide any more information about that. I don't want to spoil anything, but I found this to be a really compelling read. As I said, I didn't remember it very much from the first time I read it. I would have read it, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years ago for the first time. Read it again just now, and I was really moved by it. It's very well written, some grammatical errors here and there, but that tends to be the case with most, not all, foster care memoirs. I'm of the mind that the publishers don't spend that much time or effort with the editing. With some of them, there are exceptions. But either way, it wasn't enough to hinder my enjoyment of the read. It was definitely emotional at times. It's not the most revealing. There are some foster care memoirs about neglected children that are really difficult to read and very almost graphic in their detail as the children reveal things. This one's not quite as bad, but it's still a really heartbreaking case. If you're a fan of Maggie Hartley and you've not read Tiny Prisoners, I'd say absolutely prioritize it. It's a really brilliant read. If you've never read any foster care memoirs, then this is not a bad one to start with. It's quite gripping. It's generally well written and is quite emotional, but it's not horrendous. So it's not kind of something you need to get used to before diving into it. I'd say it's a pretty good read, no matter where you're coming from. Tiny Prisoners is one that I enjoyed for the right reasons, found emotional for, well, for the right reasons in terms of the book, but obviously for the wrong reasons in terms of Evie and Elliot. But definitely one that I'd say is worth checking out.